Here is the latest Higher Summits forecast brought to you by our friends at the Mount Washington Observatory.
Weather above treeline in the White Mountains is often wildly different than at our trailheads. Before you hike, check the Higher Summits forecast at mountwashington.org. Weather observers working at the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory write this elevation-based forecast every morning and afternoon. Search and rescue teams, avalanche experts, and backcountry guides all rely on the Higher Summits forecast to anticipate weather conditions above treeline. You should too. Go to mountwashington.org or text FORECAST to 603-356-2137.
And here's your forecast for the weekend of September 21st. So, Friday mostly in the clouds under mostly cloudy skies with drizzle and a slight chance of rain showers. The highs starting in the upper 40s, then falling through the afternoon to the lower 20s. Winds east shifting northeast at 25 to 40 miles per hour, with gusts up to 50 miles per hour, decreasing to 15 to 30 miles per hour. Wind chill will be falling to 25 to 35 above. Friday night, starting in the clouds, then trending in and out of the clouds under partly cloudy skies, slight chance of drizzle again, or rain showers early. The low will be in the upper 30s. Winds will be northeast at 15 to 30 miles per hour, with gusts up to 40 miles per hour. Wind chill will be falling to 20 to 30 above. And then Saturday, in the clear under partly sunny skies with a high in the mid-40s. Winds northeast at 15 to 30 miles per hour early, 5 to 20 miles per hour, possibly becoming light and variable at times midday, and then 10 to 25 miles per hour later. And again, the wind chill will be in the same ballpark, of about 20 to 30 above, rising to 30 to 40 above.
Broadcasting from the Woodpecker Studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stump.
All right, Stomp, episode 168. We are on we're on the clock.
Yes, we are. Yeah, that's for sure.
Well,
Time's ticking.
We have to hustle, right?
We had a cruise. We have a guest coming up at 8 o'clock, and we're recording early. They couldn't make it for the start, but yeah, let's hustle, as they say.
I just want to warn you, Stomp. I'll try to hide behind my microphone when I do this, but I'm still having... Stop me if you heard this before, but I'm having issues with my mouth still.
Oh, no. Is it healing, or what's going on?
It's healing, but slowly. It over the course of the day, the more I talk, the more painful the roof of my mouth spot gets.
Okay.
So I'm doing better sleeping, but I'm not. My mouth still hurts quite a bit.
You have like a follow-up coming up, or?
I went in, did the follow-up last week, and I screamed and made a whole big scene, and everyone was like, what's going on? But now I have to go in like a month, so I'm kind of on my own. And it's definitely getting better, but it's still... I have this numbing cream that I'm putting on it.
Oh, yeah.
Ambigel or whatever.
Sure.
You're supposed to use it 3-4 times a day. I use it about 3 or 4 times a minute.
So that means I'll be carrying the beer section. I'm guessing.
Yes, yeah, no beer for me. But anyway, yeah, next week will be the week where I'll be able to say my mouth feels better. But anyway, Stomp, welcome to episode 168 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week, we are joined by Adam Hoyt. Adam hosts the popular YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok channels that he uses his name as the channel details, and we'll include the links to all of them in the show notes. But his channel, he highlights his many hikes in and around the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Many of his videos start with the familiar refrain, "Have you hiked this?" and then insert trail, mountain, description, whatever. So he's pretty popular. So he usually follows that by a detailed description and overview of each hike. So Adam will share some of the details about the behind the scenes process of creating his videos, and he'll talk about his hiking adventures. And then I got a couple of questions to ask him. He had a nasty fall in the Great Gulf, so I want to talk about that. And there's some other good stories.
Yeah.
So all that stuff, plus there is a hiker approaching a new overall fastest known time on the Appalachian Trail. There's a New Hampshire local that gets into a calamity near Old Faithful in Yellowstone. We might have to use the shame drop on that one.
Planning on it.
A hiker goes into the woods to find... We have a story about a hiker that goes into the woods to find themselves and then immediately ends up getting lost and needs a rescue. Flags on the 48 update. We've got fun facts about Tuckerman Ravine, fall foliage updates, recent hikes in the Great Gulf, Chandler Brook, Eagle Cliff, Red Hill Fire Tower. Stomp's all sweaty after getting back from these hikes right now. We've got notable hikes and recent search and rescue news. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
All right, Stomp, let's go into our friend Mr. Andrew Barlow so he can do a hiking buddy spot.
Yep, got a couple more. This is tips 3 and 4 for the hike safe tips.
Okay.
This is Ben Pease from Hiking Buddies. We are a 501c3 nonprofit committed to reducing avoidable tragedies through education, impactful projects, and fostering a community of support. You can find out more at hikingbuddies.org. We wanted to say thank you to those who have supported our mission, and most importantly, say thanks to those who speak up, who ask questions, and who are willing to provide guidance and assistance on the trails when needed. You embody what it means to be a hiking buddy. And now, for all my newer hikers out there, here's this episode's Hiking Buddies Quick Tip.
Hiking Essentials 3 and 4, Sun Protection and First Aid. Along with proper sunscreen, sun shirts are helpful and cooling for exposed trails. First aid kit important items include a SAM splint, sterile gauze, tape and wrapping, and alcohol wipes.
Hi, Christina with White Mountain Endurance Coaching, and I wanted to let you know that not only do I coach endurance athletes, I also coach hikers and mountaineers. I have plenty of experience in the White Mountains and would love to teach you how to start out, whether you're a beginner, if you're more advanced, give you some more skills to transition from hiking to trail running, and most of all, teach you how to move safely in the mountains. So whatever your goals are, whatever your experience is, reach out, coaching.christinapolsik.com. I'd love to help you.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrew and Christina from White Mountain Endurance Coaching. Stomp, at what point are we going to run out of hiking buddy spots, and you're going to have to do a whole new segment with Andrew?
I think they have 2 more spots. Once they finish up the hiking essentials, they're actually all huddling now to determine if they want to continue or take a break or come up with some new idea. But yeah, the hiking tips are going to probably go away after a couple of weeks because
okay,
we've exhausted them. There are no more tips.
Yeah, no, there's a bunch of good tips there. So all good. So thanks again to our friends at Hiking Buddies. So Stomp, the fastest known time thing is going on. I've got a lot of people pinging me about this one, and I've also been like, we had this guy on our show like a while back, Matt Shin. He does a lot of the FKT stuff. So he had put out a video about this hiker, and then my friend Al's been updating me as well, and we've been doing the math about like whether or not she's going to get the fastest known time. So this hiker's name is Tara Dower, and she's got a pretty good resume when it comes to like, I think she has the fastest known time on the Colorado Trail and a couple of other long distance hikes. So her website is called Tara Treks.
Nice.
And this one's interesting. So the fastest known time on the Appalachian Trail is a northbound hike by Carol Sabi. I don't know how you say that. So Scott Jurek had broke it in 2015, and then Carol Sab had broken it in 2018. Now, these are both northbound FKTs. So Carol had broken Scott Jurek's by 5 days.
Wow.
And then the FKT for southbound is held by Christian Morgan. He had broken Carl Metzger's time. So the southbound FKT is 45 days in change. And then the northbound is 41 days and 7 hours. Tara Dower is hiking southbound. And now, again, the southbound fastest known time is 45 days, 4 hours by Christian Morgan. She is on pace to actually beat the northbound FKT of Carol Sabi, which is 41 days and 7 hours. So she's going to come in under the fastest known time for the northbound going south. So she's going to break the southbound by about 4 or 5 days, and then break the overall by looks like maybe about a half a day.
Yeah, that's cruising, huh?
Oh. Yeah, she's doing like, and her system is interesting. She's not like from a average pace.
Yeah.
She's not as fast as these other people, but what she's doing is limiting her sleep. So she's starting at like 3 a.m. and doing a very small amount of sleep, so she can actually crank out longer days. So she's averaging like, I think like 55 miles a day or something like that. So
sounds like a risky strategy.
I mean, so there was a northbound FKT, I forget the name of I think it was Christian Morgan actually that was trying to get the northbound FKT. He was on pace to make it with about 4 days left, and I think that he got an injury. So yeah, it's risky, but she's holding up right now as far as I can tell, unless there's been some calamity. But right now, I'm tracking her, and she passed Fontana Dam, and I think she's in Georgia now. Let me double check. Nope, she's not in Georgia yet. She's still in, looks like by Fontana Dam. But yeah, she's got 2 more days to get there.
Yeah, that's a big chunk of change. That's impressive. So how come, I find it odd that going northbound the record is shorter than coming southbound, especially when you hit the whites and everything is uphill, more or less.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting.
I don't know. I guess that's just the way it is, yeah.
Wow. Well, good luck, Tara. Maybe we can chat about it.
Yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully she doesn't have any issues in the next 2 days.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck.
All right, Stomp. So this next one here is a Yellowstone issue. So we talk a lot about this. People fall into the hot springs there, and they get in trouble. There was a geyser that exploded aggressively that tore up some of the boardwalks. And there's a lot of rules there. Piers Brosnan got in trouble for stepping off of the boardwalk and had to pay a fine. So the latest here is a 60-year-old tourist from New Hampshire suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns after walking off trail over a geothermal crust in Yellowstone. The woman was life-flighted to a hospital in Idaho.
A New Hampshire native. Oh, that's
Windsor, New Hampshire.
That's unfortunate. Yeah,
I don't know what Windsor, New Hampshire is, Stomp.
Windsor? I think that's.
Yeah, where's that?
I think that's on the eastern shore, if I remember correctly.
Is it? Okay.
But yeah, listener Keegan Stair pointed out that it was another outbreak of the Pierce Brosnan syndrome, and it's we got a good laugh out of it. PBS syndrome.
Yeah.
Do you know
they tell tourists to stay on the boardwalk.
Yeah.
She was wandering around with a leash dog off the boardwalk, so and she broke through this thin crust of scalding water and suffered burns on her legs. So no situational awareness apparently here. So
Right.
The incident's under investigation. The park says there's no additional information or photos to share. The burns to the woman marked the first known thermal injury in Yellowstone this year. So they had a good run.
Wow. Dangerous place. Seems like it was unintentional, though, as opposed to Pierce Brosnan.
Well, she went off the boardwalk, so shame.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. Not Massachusetts either, Stomp. New Hampshire.
Right. That's the reason why it's in the script. I mean, geez, you can't pass that one up.
I guess
She won't hear the end of it.
Well, hopefully, I mean, she's okay. I mean, second, third degree burns, no joke, and it is scary.
Yeah.
And people make mistakes, and who knows? It could be that a sign got knocked over or something, and she wasn't doing anything, with malice. But still, people got to pay attention.
Yeah, maybe she was going on a spiritual quest, like the next story.
Maybe. That's a good segue, Stomp. So, this is quite a story here. I read this early in the week. Somebody sent this to me, but basically, a British Columbia woman was seeking spiritual insight through an ego death during a solo venture. So apparently, this is like one of those like Outward Bound things, but for adults. So this woman paid $1,400 to a nonprofit adventure service, Animas Valley Institute, for a multi-day excursion. So she was one of 11 participants. So you had 11 people. Hold on, stop. I'm going to do the math here.
Trying to get lost.
11 people spending $1,400. That's $15,000 now. Listen, if anybody wants to find themselves and they need help, I won't do this in the White Mountains because I'm not licensed, but just reach out to me. And for $700, I will get you a spiritual journey in the woods.
Yeah, just point them in the right direction and there you go.
Yeah. So anyway,
Wow.
so 53-year-old, she spent $1,400 for this nonprofit adventure service,
Quote unquote.
to do a multi-day excursion. So they should do a documentary on this. This would be wild.
Nonprofit, my butt.
One of 11 participants in the group camped together for 5 days, and then they split up for solo quests. So this gets wild, Stomp. I'm going to go into this a little bit. So the loneliness and physical stress of the outing would, by design, bring the explorers into a clearer state of mind. So basically what they're saying is like, going to do a group hike, and then you're going to go off on your own, like that TV show Alone, and it's going to bring you into a clearer state of mind. So the article goes on to explain that there was like no attempt made by the organization to measure any of these people's personal survival skills. So they just let them out into the backcountry, according to the report from the county sheriff's office.
Wow.
They were also encouraged by their guides to leave their cell phones behind. That was meant to curtail access to social media as the campers isolated themselves from civilization. Mm-hmm. So the victim, her name is Gina Chase. She wanted to basically clear her mind, and I guess she was going through some personal issues or something like that. But she wanted to, I guess before this, she thought that she would like even jumpstart this whole thing by fasting. So she decided that not only was she going to do this like 5-day camping thing and then do the solo, she was going to fast during it so that she would eventually hallucinate and eventually like crack. And she was hoping that nature would speak back to her. So
I guess it
apparently
did.
The guy, what happened is that the guides split the group up and they sent them to like different areas of the wilderness, and they partnered them up. They were like, okay, Mike and Stomp, you guys go off into this little area here and then stay away from each other. They go, whatever, half a mile away. And then they had this system where they were like, okay, every day you guys are going to go to this log at a different time, and then you're going to put a rock on the log. And that way, if Mike puts his rock on the log in a certain way, Stomp's going to know Mike's okay, and then Stomp's going to put his rock on the log. And that's how they're going to know how they're okay.
Wow.
So this lady goes off and, you know, she has no clue whatsoever. They gave them like these stupid directions to be like, you know, take a left at the small meadow and walk for a little while.
Yeah.
And then the guide basically just was like, go ahead and send themselves off. So one of the campers that was her partner basically, you know, she's moving the rocks on this log, and they're supposed to do it every night and every morning. But this chase lady never responded after establishing her camp. And she eventually attempted to like circumnavigate the other camper's site so that she wouldn't disturb the camper. But by doing so, Chase ended up getting disoriented and walked in the wrong direction from where the communication rocks were. So immediately, basically, like the first time she attempted to go to this log to do a communication rock, she got completely lost. And then from there, like she didn't have any of her stuff. Like she basically brought, I guess she had her emergency food with her, but otherwise like she lost her campground and couldn't find her. So she was already fasting and hungry. And eventually like the fatigue caught up to her, but she was able to construct like a shelter, and she ended up staying out there for 4 nights. So, and then she also started a small fire. So I guess she did a little bit. She did okay. She had some survival skills from watching Alive and Naked and Afraid. Whoa. But eventually, like the guide service, like they told the rescue team, and they were able to find her. But so anyway, that's
excellent. That's
the latest.
I love it. Definitely coming to a theater near you up here in New Hampshire. Yeah, but we'll definitely start a company like this if it's going to bring us a few bucks, huh?
Yeah, and then there's some back and forth between the guide company and the search and rescue team about whether or not she was left out there without, you know, they were like, well, she had food and she was okay. So anyway, apparently she's got some outdoor skills. She has a Garmin, but she didn't bring it with her because she's like, I got these guides here. I don't need it because they're experts. And turns out they were idiots.
Wow, that is a crazy story.
I love the rock communication, like stick a rock on a log.
Mm-hmm. Any indication as to how the weather was when she was out there?
Yeah, it didn't say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in California, right? California?
British Columbia, I think
British Columbia. It's, San Miguel. Never mind.
Yep.
Cool.
So anyway, Stomp. We should try that, though.
Yeah, let's do it. Communication rocks ready to go. Can we paint the rocks?
No.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that when that was all the rage, when people were dropping painted rocks on summits and people were just getting pissed?
I found one of those rocks on one of the summits one time.
That was
like
outrageous.
A painted rock.
Yeah, there's like this one hardcore dude that was like, I don't care what you think. I'm putting these painted rocks everywhere. You remember that?
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. He would like basically, he was doing the 4,000 footers and he would paint a brick.
Right.
And the bricks were actually cool. Like people were collecting them and they were taking them down. And people were like, oh, just keep. I would have kept it. I would have been like, oh, I'm going to keep this one. But I found like just a kindness rock on the summit.
Yeah. Kindness
and I just
rock.
tossed it. I tossed it off the summit and I said, no kindness.
This is not a kind place. Duh.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I saw a bunch of them at the trailhead at Wambach, and I just left them. I was like, yeah, they're at the trailhead. Somebody else will throw them away.
Yeah. I mean, there's a fireplace up there, for goodness sakes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that was the story of the hiker that went in the woods to find themselves and then ended up getting lost.
Wonderful.
Nice. You know where you can find yourself, Stomp, is at Reklis Brewing.
Hell yeah. That's for sure. So we have tickets on sale now. They're live. We'll give you the link. You can go to the Instagram LinkTree and sign up and get your tickets for the Full Condition show on November 16th. It's like a full day event. There's going to be hiking and then a live show with us recording and music and tons of guests, comedy, you name it. Ty's going to be there helping out, co-hosting. So check out the Instagram and get your tickets quick because it is actually moving pretty fast. They will have some overflow in the back with tents and propane heaters and whatnot, but you got to move fast on that one. Looking forward to hang out with everybody. It's going to be great. And it benefits the New Hampshire Outdoor Council, the umbrella agency here in New Hampshire that really provides a lot of funding for the volunteer search and rescue teams. instrumental in funding their gear and all kinds of events.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to it. And I always get nervous about these public speaking events, Stomp, but I will pull myself together and make it happen.
Yeah, we have some new gear to try out too. We're going to have headphones on, and I think I'll actually be sitting right next to you. I'll have to take a shower and put some deodorant on.
Yeah, Stomp got this like cool device thing that like you can do like live drops. So we can do the shame drop, and we can do some other stuff at the press of a button, right?
Oh yeah, on the fly. Yep.
Yeah, I got a couple sounds I want you to load up, and there's going to be a couple of mic buttons just for me to use.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can do the crickets. We can do all kinds of stuff. So it's got a good time.
Very good. All right, so this last weekend we had flags on the 48 Stomp. So I saw a lot of cool pictures on social media, a lot of people getting up there and getting the flags up. And then a couple of years, I think we're coming up on, this was the 23rd anniversary of 9/11, so we got 2 more years and we'll be the 25th anniversary. Hard to believe that it's been that long, but another successful event. Any comments, any feedback you heard from anybody?
I was digging in on the website, but I did not see an update. I was most curious to see whether or not they had achieved all 48 peaks. I can't find anything. I'm assuming they did.
Yeah, I think they got pretty good coverage. I saw a bunch of pictures from different summits. So,
yeah, we had perfect
people
weather.
were on hail, so I mean, I got to imagine they got all the coverage if people were doing hail.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, absolutely. No major mishaps. Knock on wood. So yeah, that's excellent. And the crew up in Franconia got up on top of the historical site for the old man too. That's a classic. So yeah, another good memorial for that terrible day.
Yep. It's I can't believe it's been 23 years, Stomp.
Yeah, I know. That's sort of strange. I remember exactly
where were you that day.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Where were you?
I was living in Beverly at the time. We had a small little three-decker apartment. We were on the 3rd floor or 2nd floor. God, I can't even remember now. It's been so long. And I was doing PT in Danvers, and when it hit, it was just like, oh, yeah. How about you? Were you in town?
I was working I was at back then. I was working at Keen Consulting, and in Charlestown. And we had our morning meeting. We'd have a morning meeting with my boss, and he was like looking at the computer. I mean, that was the early days, but he was like, "Oh, looks like a plane hit the World Trade Center." And I think I had just gone there with my wife. Like we had eaten at Windows of the World and done that stuff because she worked for the Marriott, so we were kind of in that area. But so he was like, "Oh yeah, plane," and we were like, "Oh, it's probably like a Cessna or like a small plane."
Yeah.
And then we wrapped up our meeting, and I think somebody had said like, "Oh, another plane hit the World Trade Center," and that's when I went into the break room, and we had those those TVs that they used to have in the classrooms, like you would put the VCR in, and it had like the big metal thing on wheels there. Yep. Like we had one of those, and we turned that on, and like I don't know, I just remember being in the break room with like 20. It was it's a tech company, and it was like all guys, and basically everyone's trying to figure out what's going on. And then the towers fell, and that's when we were all like, all right, it's time to go home. And I remember driving home on Route 1 because I went to North Reading because my wife was at my mother and father-in-law's place. And she's just pregnant with my oldest. And I remember everyone being super like nice on the drive. Like no, everyone was like letting you in. Like that was not a Boston thing. Like everyone's going slow. And I remember just listening to WBZ on the ride home. Yeah, exactly. The niceties were short-lived, but And then I remember just thinking like, oh wow, the world's going to change. I got a kid on the way, and she's going to live a very different life than I did. It did come to pass, I suppose.
You can say that again. Holy moly! But back to the duration. I mean, it's like a snap of a finger. It's been 20 plus years. Like, oh, what the heck?
It's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy. So we're old, Stomp.
Yeah, no kidding.
But anyway, keep it in mind for next year. Flags on the 48 will be here before you even know it.
Yeah, that's right.
So
always a good time.
All right. Stomp, Matt Morse, a listener, sent you a cool link, 28 Tuckerman Ravine little-known facts.
Yeah, we can't get into all of it, but it's chock full of all kinds of cool historical tidbits, skiing tidbits, and development of the forest, you name it. So Matt, thanks for sending it along. It's a nice little piece, and there are some things in there, Mike, that you and I have not even touched upon, which are really neat. So thank you, Matt, for the tip.
Yeah, there's a couple of things here I'll call it. So Tuckerman Ravine is named after botanist Edward Tuckerman, who studied alpine plants and lichen during the summers from 1837 to 1853. His name was linked to the ravine around 1848 when artist Godfrey Frankenstein, who I'm assuming maybe that's the guy named after Frankenstein, although maybe not, produced a painting titled Mount Washington over Tuckerman's Ravine. They tell the story about, he mentions a story about Henry David Thoreau's visiting Tuckerman Ravine. We did a section on that, sprained his ankle and had all kinds of issues. Talks about the first person to ski on Mount Washington, Dr. Wiskott from Breslau, Germany in 1899. Talks a lot about the different ski things. Tradition says a woman named Mary Bird is likely the first woman to ski over the head wall in 1836, and she was one of the best female racers of the day who had learned to ski from Hans Schneider Ski School in St. Anton.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And yeah, the rest of these, it's fun facts. But yeah, we'll include this in the show notes. There's some good stuff in here.
Following along on the history thing, we have Old Home Day. I get all my information now at like Mad River Coffee Shop. I look at the bulletin board to the left as you're going into this coffee shop, and there's all kinds of cool stuff. So I just noticed this flyer up there from the Campton Historical .org. It's the Campton Historical Society, and they're having an Old Home Day on Saturday, September 28th. And this is from 10 to 2, live music, all kinds of crazy stuff. The Campton Fire Department will be there, cider press, harpsichord, you name it. It's a classic small town little thing. But I dug a little deeper into the CamptonHistorical.org website, and just so listeners know, they do events year-round, and some of our previous guests have actually gone there and spoken, like Dave Gavatsky, who was at the White Mountain National Forest Museum in Plymouth. Once a month, they'll do a special talk, and it's all kinds of stuff, like Range the Wild Woods, loggers, songs, and stories, you name it, silent movies. So it's sort of cool. It's just a fun thing to do. Keep a lookout, and local interest.
I love that stuff.
Oh, that's
we'll
great.
Make sure we put that in the show notes for people to check it out.
It's good stuff.
All right, Stomp. So last week we had we had said that there was somebody that was going to be attempting so Stomp has invented this Lodge to Dodge route in the White Mountains. So it's basically like the lodge at Moosilauke all the way to Joe Dodge, but you got to hit all the huts as well. So you go out to Carter Notch and then come down Joe Dodge. So is it Judd? Is that his name?
Well, that's the first thing. I was calling him Judo, but his name is Judd, so I think it's Juddo, according to his Instagram handle.
Yeah, Judd.
So sorry about that.
But Judd, he started. He did the Dodge section first, and then he was going down to Moosilauke to the Lodge. But what happened, Stomp? Did you go out to to meet him, right?
Yeah, since I'm like the creator of this crazy stupid thing.
Yeah, you had to.
I had to. Yeah, it's like when people hit me up and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to give it a shot." Larson gave me a heads up, and then I got an email from Judd. There have been others, but he was starting at 2 a.m. So by the time I got settled down, it was pretty much, I don't know. I went to bed at 10, woke up at midnight, and made it to Pinkham by 2 a.m. Got 2 hours sleep. And
was there anybody else around besides Judd?
Nobody. So I'm walking around trying to find them. I went up to the Joe Dodge Lodge, nobody. I went down to the basement, and there were 3 people sleeping on mats in the basement of Pinkham. That sort of preparation.
You can do that?
Well, I don't know if you can or not, but they were, or some people were. 1:55 a.m., there's a big bustle, and all the people come over, and Judd and I went over to the Joe Dodge, and you tap it, the traditional tap on the wall of the hut, and they were off and running. So he was moving. I was following the track most of the day, and I don't know, like every hour I would check, he would be 2 or 3 mountains past further along on the presidentials. It was incredible. And then he made it up and over the AZ Trail up into Zealand. He got to South Twin, bombed down towards Galehead, and then like around 6:47 p.m., all of a sudden I see a hard right at Garfield, down Garfield Trail. And I'm like, uh-oh, something's up. And that just kept on continuing up until about 8:42, and it just stopped in downtown Twin. So ultimately what happened, it wasn't a serious medical condition, but just he was uncomfortable enough to say, this is not a good idea, so he pulled the plug. He had like 21 miles left, too. The dude would have crushed it. So he's got a chip on his shoulder. He's going to do it again sometime for sure.
He is, yeah. Well, and what's the goal? You have to do it within 24 hours? Is that the rule?
No.
No, you do it whenever?
No, there's all kinds of variations now. Some people like to hit, like Steve Mason, he went southbound Dodge to Lodge and did all the summits. Because the first time he tried it, he was going northbound, and he had the same thing, just like sort of bonked out, got a little ill on trail, and it happens. It's super, super vigorous for your body. So yeah, whatever. You do what you do. I think the main point is that you do hit the huts, and that you're starting at either Ravine or Joe Dodge Lodge, and Ravine being Ravine Lodge at Moosalak. And then there are those quirky little things that you have to do, like you come out of Osgood onto Route 16 off the presidentials, and you have to do the Wildcats. And then at the other end, you have to do Moosalak. So those are two sort of mandatory things before you finish. 76 miles, it's a beast.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, maybe he'll go back at it. But yeah, if any listeners are out there and they want to do they want to take a shot at it, let us know. We'll meet you out there and cheer you on.
Yeah. So the only two people to have done it are Steve Mason and Larson Ojala. So pretty cool. Anywho,
so that's very good, Stomp. So what's going on with foliage? I got out, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but there was definitely, the leaves are changing in the Great Gulf. So what are you seeing up there?
I bet, because that's a little further north up there. At the southern tip of the Whites here, I think it's mostly, I don't know, maybe 10%, 10-15%. We have this foliage tracker that we'll provide the link for, and they're saying that it's basically, quote-unquote, some statewide. And I think that's pretty accurate.
I think that's about right.
I do wonder how vivid or not vivid it will be, but we shall see. It's hard to say.
I mean, I got some good looks last weekend, so I got to imagine it's probably pretty good. Mm-hmm. I was going to go to Maine this weekend, and Mrs. Mike decided that she doesn't want to go to Maine. So I'm like, well,
oh, really?
What about me? What about me? I'm like, it's foliage season, so I'll probably drive up on Sunday.
Yeah.
I was going to go up to Grafton Notch, and maybe I still will, but we'll see.
Huh? Yeah. It's still a little early for the foliage, but
yeah.
Anyway.
All right, Stomp. Are you training for the Rescue Me 5K that's coming up on November 9th?
No, man. You know why? Going to be manning the microphone. We're going to be hosting that baby.
We're host, so I can't run. I have to host.
You can run, but you're going to have to do a mic drop and just book it.
I could do that.
I think you can do that. I think that'll be really cool too if you just drop the mic at the starting bell and you just run.
Right.
Like literally drop the mic. Those mics will handle it. So so we're talking about the Rescue Me 5K. This is the annual fundraiser for the Lakes Region Search and Rescue Team. It's in Lincoln, New Hampshire on November 9th, bright and early in the morning. It's a 5K? Yeah, 5K, which is what, 3 miles?
5K, yep, 3.1.
3.1. And this helps Lakes Region Search and Rescue Team with purchasing equipment, training, operational costs. It's a great time. There'll be plenty of conservation officers running as well from District 2. And let's see, this year they're capping it at 450 people. So it's grown to quite a really cool event. And then after there's an awards ceremony, I believe it will be at One Love Brewery. So we hope to see you there. We're just going to be grabbing the mic and just announcing people and, national anthem and stuff like that. Oh, there you go, Mike. You can do the national anthem.
Oh, no way. No, I wouldn't do that justice.
Would never be invited back.
No. All right, yeah. So I'm excited for this. This will be a good time. Always great to get out to Lincoln and enjoy the day. So, next up here, Stomp. We talk about this from time to time on the podcast, but there's name changes. So occasionally, like the government will decide that they're going to change the name. I think the most recent one was Mount McKinley. The most recent big one was Mount McKinley got changed back to Denali. Is that right?
I don't know.
I think so.
I don't know.
I think so at some point. Anyway, so on the Appalachian Trail, the highest point on the Appalachian Trail is a summit called Clingman's Dome. And recently, Clingman's Dome has been renamed to what Cherokee Native American representatives indicate was his original name, which is Kuwohi. So the U.S. Board of Geographic Names voted in favor of the request submitted by the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians to change the name of Clingman's Dome to Kuwohi. So that is official now. So the government has changed it. I guess the Kuwohi means Mulberry Place in Cherokee language, whatever language that is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's it. And the Cherokee people lived in that area until they were forced to be relocated to Oklahoma in what's called the Trail of Tears.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's good. I guess this is unique because the Clingman, the guy that was named that this was named after, was he was a senator from North Carolina. And then he eventually became a general or a commander of the Confederate Army. So,
yeah,
controversial.
Okay.
So I feel I don't feel much sympathy for him if he was a Confederate general. So too bad.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of these name changes going on lately.
Proposals. I mean, I always think about like the presidential range, but I think it's a little bit different. Like, it seems like Cherokee Indians were in this area. They actually did go on the mountain and they lived in that area.
Yeah.
I think in the White Mountains, from my view, like there's definitely Native Americans, not a huge population. And my understanding is they didn't go into the mountains. And I do, in some ways, I just feel like, okay, well, the history of how the names got selected, you could make the argument in Mount Washington that Aggiachuk, but I don't think there's any evidence that any Native Americans were looking at that particular peak and calling it Aggiachuk. I think that it was just a general name of what the mountains in the region were.
Yeah, a respect to spiritual awareness and whatnot.
Yeah, we'll see. But there's definitely there's a small group of activists in New Hampshire that do push every couple of years to change Mount Washington.
Correct.
So we'll see. And I mean, a lot of people call it Aggiachuk, and that's cool and everything, but I think they can live side by side.
Oh, of course.
Yep.
We all know that hiking a mountain can be hard at times. So here's a corny dad joke to help you get over it. Ba-dum-bum.
Times are changing. And now is the part of the show where we do a dad joke. Stomp, how do moths swim? How do moths
butterfly
swim?
stroke?
That's the butterfly stroke. Did I do this joke?
No, I'm just a genius with dad jokes.
Good. That's the first time you've actually gotten one of these. So, why did the nurse need a red pen?
I have no idea.
In case she needed to draw blood.
Oh, there you go. Draw blood. I get it.
Dun-dun-dun.
That's cool.
So.
Oh, God. All right.
Not press Stomp?
Yeah, it was okay.
All right. So, moving on here, Stomp. Coffee donations. Part of the show where we talk about coffee donations.
Yeah. Let's go. So if you want to support the podcast, go to the Buy Me a Coffee off of the LinkTree on Instagram. We have 3 donations this week. Susan from the Seacoast donated 3. Thank you, Susan. Tyler in the Woods 29 donated 5. And Warren Wheelock donated 5 coffees as well. So that's a really busy week for coffee donations, and we really appreciate it. And thank you. I think you're almost paying off your gold teeth, right? That you're going to get your grill, your gold grill.
I have one gold teeth in the back, one gold in the back, but no, I'm covering that on my own. So
that's great.
All right, Stomp. Is this a sponsor? Waterville?
It is.
Waterville?
Yeah, we're just helping out. We're just getting the word out for this. It's pretty important. So Waterville Athletic and Improvement is hosting a wilderness first aid, and so when hiking accidents can happen, listening to this podcast, have you wondered what you would do if you came upon an injured hiker, or if you or your hiking buddy got injured? You can attend a solo wilderness first aid class on Saturday, November 2nd and 3rd in Waterville Valley. We will provide the registration link. And yeah, that's it. That's a great thing to know. It always comes in handy when you least expect it. Or you can also email them to at wvaiatrails2@gmail.com. Yeah,
we'll include all that in our show notes.
Yeah. All right, man. So you're not drinking anything. I'm still exploring these hard ciders. So I have a Storm Along, which is my favorite. I love it. And it's a Pog Punch, which is, 5.8%, and it's pomegranate mixed. Ooh, yeah. Passion fruit, blood orange, tangerine, and guava mixed in this.
Fancy.
Oh, it's so good. And what I found about this is it's non-gluten, so I don't get the upset stomach when I drink this stuff, which is really refreshing. So there you go.
Great, great. Do you think you do you have an allergy to gluten, do you think?
I can say with a fair amount of certainty that I do.
You should get tested.
Yeah, I mean, after 54 years on this planet, I think I've got it dialed down pretty good. Like when I drink beer or a vodka or something like that, it definitely bloats my belly.
You can feel it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Stomp is getting old and he's got ailments, but he's got them under control. So
getting long in the tooth.
Yeah. All right. Next week I will be back with a beer.
All right.
I haven't drank a beer in a little while. So see. All right, Stomp. Now we're talking about recent hikes. I did get out and did a recent hike, but why don't you start with your most recent hike?
Yeah, let's go. So I just snuck out of work a little early today. I had a couple cancellations, which is what always happens in the medical field, unfortunately. So I went back to where Mr. Stomp and I went recently. It was Eagle Cliff, and it's in Sandwich, and it's on the eastern side of the Sandwich Traverse, which it's more or less adjacent to Morgan Percival on the other side of the lake. And we had gone up the 0.5 to the viewpoint. It was absolutely amazing. But you can go another 2 miles through a bunch of PUDs, which are purposeless ups and downs for new listeners. And it's 2 miles over to Red Hill Fire Tower. And I wanted to connect those two. So I had the opportunity and I tackled it. And it was really nice. There was nobody on trail. I was by myself. Open woods. It's a very wide ridge traverse. And there's maybe, the same thing, 10% of the leaves are falling. So you get a little bit of that coming in now. I was actually surprised. The ascent, you go up maybe another 100 feet past the first cliff, and then you have another high point, and then you drop a couple 100 feet, then you go up a couple 100 feet. But the last ascent up to Red Hill Fire Tower itself was probably a good 500-foot elevation. Some of it really steep, some of it not, but there's only 2 or 3 scrambles. Mr. Stump is a little leery about that, but it was actually very gentle. The trails themselves are sparse with boulders and rocks. It's mostly just gravel dirt. So it's a beautiful time. And of course,
it's pretty big. It's a big fire.
The tower?
Fire tower, yeah.
Oh my God.
Did you climb all the way up?
Yes. Yeah, they close it in the winter for safety, but right now it's 360. You get views of, Chicora all the way over to, God knows, I think you can see some of the Whites, Franconia Ridge, Squams. You get, Robert Shaw and all that stuff. It's great. Great time. And then, so it was 5 miles total.
Yeah, it looks cool. I definitely want to check that out someday.
Yeah. Then, of course, I drove back by Sandwich Notch Road, my favorite road. Oh, God, it's so much fun.
Tacoma ate that up.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Nice. All right, stop. Well, I got out to the Great Gulf. So Jake and my friends Jake, Peter, and Steve from the Cape had done an overnight at Osgood Tent Site because Peter he's about 89% on his red line at this point. So he had to get the Chandler Brook Trail to close out the Great Gulf.
Yeah.
So I was wary about my mulch situation, but I was like, I think I can deal with it. So I met them on Sunday morning. So I stopped at the Great Gulf Trail, got out and just solo hiked out to Osgood, met them as they were just getting they just had summit packs. So they left the tent stuff at the platform. And then we just did a hike up the Great Gulf Trail and then turned up Chandler Brook. I'd never been on that side. I have not done Chandler Brook or Wamsuta.
Right.
So,
me neither.
Yeah, but Chandler Brook was interesting. So I think it's about 4 miles in or so. So you go over the bridge, cut across Madison Gulf, and then stay on the Great Gulf Trail, but it's before you get to Six Husbands. Chandler Brook cuts over on the left, and we went up, and it's really like climbing like right next to a waterfall. Like it's just a straight terrain. It's super steep.
Does it come out at 4 mile mark? I think it's somewhere
Comes
right
out
around
at the
there.
4 mile mark, at the auto road.
I saw that when I was exploring that old carriage road.
Yes.
Super cool.
So it comes out. So it's like you climb to about, it's steep. It's about a 1,200 foot climb, I think, from the base of the Great Gulf where you get the trail up to the top.
Yeah.
But probably and there's a couple of water crossings. So if it's running hot in the spring, I don't think you'd be able to get across the brook, which could be a problem because you do need to get over on the left-hand side. I don't know how that works in when it's running hot because it would be definitely a dangerous river crossing there. But it's very steep. Around 3,700 feet, it opens up to like a bunch of rock slides, and then you get these really cool views that look straight out into like Jefferson, and you can see Adams Slide and the whole deal. And then there's a bunch of different. We probably spent a half hour or so just chilling out in that area, just looking at different views, and the foliage was starting to change. And you could hear the auto road, and you could hear people parked up on the auto road on the other side where it comes out. And I don't think people realize they could literally just hike down that little trail 5 minutes and have the most unbelievable views, and they wouldn't even feel like they were near a road.
Interesting. That's great to know.
Yeah. And then we went down, we just hiked down the auto road to Madison Gulf. Peter had to close out that last section of Madison Gulf that connects with the Great Gulf from the auto road. And then we went back to Osgood, and they packed up and we hiked out. I stashed some, as a matter of fact, I did have a beer because I stashed some beers in the river. And I had a half a beer. I was struggling to drink it.
That's great. Good idea. Cold water.
Yeah. Yeah, they stayed cold, so it was good.
That's super cool. Yeah, nice. We're both getting out.
Yeah, and it was it was 13 miles, but it was like a chill 13 miles, so it was really only 3,000 feet of elevation.
Yeah. This weekend I'm going out to see 21 Pilots in Boston with my daughters and Mrs. Stomp, and then the weekend after we're doing the Campton with Dave. Dave Blanks in the Woods and Nobby. Open invite for that still, if you want to go, but that's going to be pretty cool.
I'm going to be out of town that weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I found I don't know if I mentioned this, but I found I think it was like $30 or something, this car carrier or bike carrier for the back of, it's like a baby carrier. We're going to use it to transport everything, attach it to the bikes and go up. We'll give you a report on Sawyer, see how that road is. It's still closed.
Don't fall in.
Yeah. All right, cool.
So, but that'll be fun. I'm getting out on Sunday somewhere. I might go up to Grafton Notch, and I've been thinking about Baldpate for a while. I might go up there because I figure the foliage is going to be a little better up north. So we'll see. I'm
getting out with Mrs. Stump too, but we just found this cheap kayak, so now we can go out and kayak. So we might go explore some local ponds or something different,
All right. Well,
Yeah.
stay safe, Stomp, and make sure that you're wide awake. And the best way to stay wide awake is some nice coffee.
That's right. And by the way, we have a sponsor, CS Coffee. Our podcast is supported by CS Instant Coffee, makers of eco-friendly instant coffee. It's perfect for anyone who loves the outdoors as much as we do. Great for backpacking, day hiking, camping, and even at home. Learn more and get in touch at csinstant.coffee on the web or email them at info@csinstant.coffee. All right, it's that time of the week here. Notable listener hike of the week. If you want to tag SLASR on your adventure to be considered for hike of the week, do so. And this week we have several. Let's see. Jude hikes the Whites, hiked North and South Hancocks for flags on the 48. Dave hikes and bikes. That's a new name, I think. Did Moosalak with Austin. And Austin is a young gentleman who crushed it, apparently. Megs 0682 hiked Mount Mansfield. And that's in Vermont, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. That friggin' hiker bagged 24 out of the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footers, and it was Mount Moriah via the Rattle River. That's a different approach for that mountain. That's good to see, a little variation there.
Yeah, that's Rattle River's fantastic. Matter of fact, I've done Rattle River on Shelburne Moriah, but that's a great trail because it's pretty flat for most of the way in. So if you like a nice level approach before the up, then it's great. It's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Hiking feeds my soul. Miles the dog finished 100 peaks on Moriah, completing both the New Hampshire 48 4,000 footers and the 52 with the view peaks. Congratulations. That's pretty epic. That's a lot of walking for a dog.
It is. And you know what? Miles also rocks a slasher patch on his on his harness too. So I mean, he's basically a lock to win this week.
Oh wow, they know how to massage the hosts, huh? Geesh.
Yes.
Carrie Burrow tackled a Mahoosuc Traverse, and according to her post, it seems like it was quite a psychological and physical challenge.
Yep.
Good job. That's epic. Folkstar, let's see, finished the New England 67 on Mount Katahdin. Nice work. Narak 1492 climbed Snow Cupsuptic to finish the New England 100 highest after 3 days in Maine. I don't even know what the hell that is, but it sounds epic. And then finally, Sharon hikes and writes, finished the 48 4,000 footers in New Hampshire on Bondcliff after a 10-year journey. Epic. Sometimes it takes that long. Sometimes people crush it in 2 years. Sometimes it takes 30 years. It doesn't matter. It's just a personal journey for everybody. All right.
Oh, my God, Stomp. What am I going to do here? All right. So, Judy, awesome job for flags. Shout out, honorable mention. Carrie Burrell gets an honorable mention. Mahoosuc Traverse, that's legit. But I get so many people finishing this week. So, obviously, like Miles the dog and... huge shout out. Miles is a boxer, Stomp.
Yes, yeah.
Good looking boxer. So definitely gets a notable hike for finishing the 48 and the 52. Mm-hmm. But then Folkstar, the 67 on Katahdin.
That's
and
big.
then Narak finished the NE 100 highest. And then Sharon hike and right finished the 48. So everyone's a winner, Stomp.
Oh. Becoming a trend.
It is. But everyone's like, I don't think it's this time of the year. Everyone's finishing their lists.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Well,
so
everybody's a winner. Everybody's a winner that listens to this show.
You know who else is a winner, Stomp? Adam Hoyt.
Adam Hoyt is certainly a winner.
He is a winner on social media. The guy's got a huge following. So he was nice enough to sit down with us this week to talk a little bit about his background. So why don't we go into that segment and then we'll come out on the other side and talk about search and rescue.
All right, let's do it.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week. Very cool, very cool.
All right, I'm going to hit record here.
Yep.
Oh, shit.
I'm recording too. Whoop. He must have pressed the exit button. Whoops. Yeah, he must have pressed the wrong button. Or something. Who knows?
Shame. Oh, I'm an idiot. Instead of record, I hit leave session.
We're leaving that into this. We're leaving that. That's beautiful.
That was a whoopsie. I left instead of record, but we are recording now, Adam. So
Perfect.
Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. You really made it to the big time now.
I feel quite honored. I haven't been rescued myself, but I feel like I'm in good company.
Oh, so
Good.
we're going to talk about this. Like, you almost needed a rescue. I was cringing. We'll talk about it in a moment. But like, you had an incident that like freaked me the hell out.
It freaked me out
so
as well.
I can only imagine. So we'll get into that shortly. But stop. Like, he's probably like, out of all the guests we've ever had, he's got like the amazing microphone, and he was like, I'll record my own audio. Like, we never get
He
that.
came prepared.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's almost like I make content. I was going to say for a living, but that's not true. I spend too much time on it, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So welcome, Adam. So we had already done an intro in the intro to the show, but just a little bit of background for the listeners. So Adam is a social media influencer, content creator that has a large following across the YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. I think it's pretty evenly distributed across those three platforms. From maybe TikTok's a little less, but
I think the most
YouTube.
It's funny. In terms of like the views and followers, I think it's way more on Instagram, but it is still sizable on YouTube. And it reminds me when I do like go out and hike for whatever reason, the people who say hi, they specifically seem to be the YouTube viewers. So they're I don't know if they're the more diehard ones, but like people are seeing them, and it keeps me motivated to like keep up with all the different places I post and not just focus on one or the other, because people are apparently enjoying all the different versions.
Yeah. And I think I first became aware of you through TikTok. I like my TikTok, and you always start your episodes like, have you heard about this?
Yeah.
So
I always ask
quick,
the question. That's one of my strategies.
Yeah, it's good. And then, Stomp, how did you first become aware of Adam? This was your idea to connect with him, right?
Well, yeah. Going back to YouTube, I think YouTube is becoming more of a research tool. So for Mr. Stomp and my Table Rock approach, your video came up for the Climbers Trail and this and that. We can talk about that later. And then also for Six Husbands. So your videos came up prominently, and then the quality of your videos stuck, and then we started digging and using you for research for hikes. So that's when I reached out to you. I think it was Instagram, and it's funny, with Instagram, you get one shot for some folks, so you have to type in a message, and then if they accept it, great. If not, then move on. And you responded, so that was really cool. So
yeah, because
part of the community.
Maybe what most people don't know is I usually do read a lot of those things. Whether or not I respond, that's the other question. Because it's like at the end of the day, all those things you were saying about me, it was very nice. But at the end of the day, sometimes I just view myself as a guy who still likes to just go hike, and so sometimes that can be overwhelming. But I do appreciate all of the messages, and that anyone even bothers to watch any of the stuff that I make. But it's nice that they are. Right. That, like you said, you use them as guides, and especially the YouTube videos, that's what they were always meant to be, to like, this is what it looked like for me. And especially Six Husbands of those tougher trails, those ones I know people would really want to know what they're getting themselves into. And I try and like show, especially the parts that you'd be most nervous about. And then they were interesting for me. That's why I've liked doing those ones.
Yeah, no, it's great. And we'll dig into some of your the details of your content. But why don't we start off? Can you just introduce yourself to the listeners, give a little bit of background on yourself, so that we can understand sort of how you got into hiking and content creation.
Sure. So my name is Adam Hoyt, as all my channels go by. So I grew up in upstate New York. That's where I'm originally from. And right now, as an adult, I'm currently living just outside Boston, Mass, where I work. But I have had a large connection to New Hampshire because my family and extended family, we had a cabin up north of Berlin, New Hampshire. So what's kind of funny about my origin story, even though I grew up in Rochester, New York, I've never technically hiked in the Adirondacks because we would go vacation at the cabin in New Hampshire and hiked growing up in New Hampshire for most of my life, doing random hikes here and there that my parents had picked out, though. You know, it did start kind of early, some of these bigger extreme hikes, because the first time I summited Washington with my family was, I think I was 12, that back in like 2002. We bit off more than we could chew on that one, because luckily we took quite a good advantage of the auto road, because my family hiked up. It took us like 7 or 8 hours, and we begged the guys with the van to drive us back down. So it started off a little slow. But I always enjoyed.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, I always enjoyed hiking throughout different parts of my life. Hiking in different places. I used to live in Tucson, Arizona, so I would hike around there on Mount Lemmon. Different places I would go travel abroad. I would look for 1 or 2 hikes, but like the big, like more focus on hiking started only happening in the pandemic when I started making the content and the videos, because it kind of gave me motivation to try new trails. And one of the origin stories of like it was, I had always heard of the New Hampshire 48, but I had never bothered. Like I'd hiked a few 48ers here and there throughout my life, but I'd never made a concerted effort to actually try and do it. And so that was like a natural place to start of like, oh, if I'm going to start filming hikes, what do? I know I'll make my way through this list and I'll record it as I go. And then as we'll, I'm sure, talk later, suddenly you find all these lists and all these different places to go. And it's been a good motivation and inspiration for me to keep going. But that's like where it started, I'd say.
Yeah. Are you primarily a day hiker, or do you do backpacking, overnight things in the woods as well?
So I mostly just personally do day hiking. Like I said, I have access to that cabin. And when it comes to, at least since I started making the videos, it's just logistically simpler for me to do a day hike. And sometimes some of these ones I've been doing recently, they actually take more than 1 day to film. So I will like just hike more than 1 day in a row, and it'll look like I hiked it on the same day. If I wasn't filming, it would take only 1 day. But I think in the future, I do see an aspect or a natural progression to do a backpacking video, or you go on a first backpacking trip. But I guess at the end of the day, what I thought when I first started making this channel is I had never gone backpacking before. But in my mind, the majority of people in the world have not gone backpacking. And I viewed, and if we go more into content strategy, but basically I wanted my guide to be for the people who have day jobs and want to go exploring on the weekends. And there's infinite day hike trails that they could want to explore, and they don't have to go into these big extreme multi-day backpacks. Because the number of people I view doing that is a little bit smaller, but though that would be fun to take that next step eventually.
Okay, that's fair. And then, so if I'm understanding this, so you had early hiking experience when the pandemic hit. You were kind of like many of us, like looking for something to keep you busy, and hiking was a natural thing. Was the idea for the social media and the content creation the primary motivator, or did you start hiking and then decide afterwards that you were going to start doing the content?
So I was always into hiking. The way I would describe it is more like in the pandemic, we were really bored at the beginning, and I was just watching a whole lot of Netflix. And my roommates at the time, they had these hobbies that they had that were like, at the end of the day, they'd look back and they had built something or had something to show for it. And I didn't want to come out of the pandemic and just said, well, I watched everything they published on Netflix.
Tiger King was over, and then you're like, it's time to get a life.
So basically I was like, I also watched YouTube. I grew up watching YouTube, and I like to watch YouTube. And so the idea became, and at the time I'm also, I forgot to mention, I'm an engineer by training, and that's what I do in my day job. And so also at that time, because of the nature of my type of engineering, I'm a manufacturing engineer, which means I'm usually in the factory where things are being built. And so at those beginning time of the pandemic, while a lot of people were staying home, I also had to be at the factory and never went home. And so it was just a lot of going to work all the time. And I didn't really feel like I had a creative outlet as an engineer. And so it became, well, I want to build something from scratch that's a little more creative. I know I'll make a YouTube channel. Okay, what do I make it about? I know I like to hike. Let's focus on something I already like a little bit and just take it to 11 instead of making something and learning two things at once. It's hard enough to learn how to make YouTube videos and edit and all these things on top of learning another hobby. Let's just expand the one I already have. And so that's where it kind of started.
I have a question. Well, you were in Boston at the time for 2020.
Yeah, in the same,
pandemic.
right around Boston.
Gotcha. So what was your perception on the whole stay home, stay low and local? Do you recall all that stuff? I mean, what did you get a chilly reception coming north? I mean, what was it like for you living in Boston?
I don't remember going on hikes and doing that part of it. I don't remember I just feel like I thought it would be less busy than it was because I think everyone was getting outside. And so it was like, there was a lot of people out there, but I don't remember feeling any receptions like that. It was just, everyone was out there trying to have fun. And it's so long ago now, it's hard for me to even remember.
Yeah. People feel like it was longer than it was. My recollection was it was basically like from March of 2020 up until like maybe July. And then once July hit, it was like everybody just flooded the woods.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So, we sort of had a similar situation when we released the podcast. So we started, I think, early in the pandemic, and we were just sort of like, we had talked about doing this, and we put the podcast out on a weekly basis, and we didn't know if it was going to grow. I always thought like, we'll get 5 listeners, and my mother and my wife will listen, and then we'll look back at it and say, remember that time we tried to start this podcast? Now we're like almost 175 episodes in or whatever, and we get some success. So how did you go about growing your social media channels, and how long did it take you to get to the point where you were like, yeah, this is actually getting some traction? So
it actually took a long time, and it was slow growing, and it's not how many people think. I think some people may think that like one day I just appeared, and that is kind of true, because what ended up happening was, like I said, I've started on YouTube, and that was very slow going, finding the audience, learning. Like when I first started, it was kind of like, I'm just going to go on hikes and I'm going to make the videos. And I didn't really have a strategy. I was just like, I'm going to record the hikes that I'm doing. And then I discover stuff like Terrifying 25, and it's like, oh, those are the ones people seem most interested in for whatever reason. And then it was, so that was slow going, trying to post it in different places where people might appreciate it and view it as guides. And then I did at one point made friends with Taylor, the New Hampshire hiker, who I'd recommend. If you had not done an episode with her, it might be fun to do one with her. But basically, we early on within a couple months of starting, one of the first big breaks I got was that she invited me to go on a hike, and we did one together. And at the time, because she was making Appalachian Trail videos, her audience was much larger, because that's like, weird thing in the content world. There's like, you think hiking is hiking. Well, but there's like a whole audience that just is obsessed with the Appalachian Trail. And so I collaborated with her, got a little bit growth from that. But then I realized like I said, it's all about what you make it about. Just going on random hikes, there's only so much audience. Suddenly you frame your random hike on Wildcat Mountain as, I hiked the steepest mile on the Appalachian Trail. All of a sudden you tap into another audience. So that's like an interesting way to look at it, because at the end of the day, the Appalachian Trail goes by here. Oh, if I make videos about sections of it, even though I'm not actually hiking the full thing, those videos have other appeal, because there's other interest in that. So it slowly grows over time. And then it was only actually last year, when I had a little more free time, that we're talking, this is years of making the YouTube videos, and it had decent success, but not too big, that I finally listened to my brother, and he's like, make the short videos. So all I basically did was I took 3 years of a backlog of YouTube videos, and I edited them into small videos and posted them. And that's when things seemed to really explode, because all of my Instagram followers are just since May of last year, which is much, much faster than anything I ever made. And that's been quite different. So it feels like it was like a slow buildup, and then all of a sudden the dam broke, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And YouTube's interesting. Like, I'm obsessed with, like, I watch this channel called Miami Boat Ramps, and it's all it is just a guy that does 8 to 10 minute videos of people docking and undocking or taking their boats on and off trailers at a boat ramp in Miami, and it's like the most entertaining thing you could imagine. So and you sort of are in that sweet spot with YouTube as well. It's like 8 to 15 minute videos.
That's what I learned. That's what I had to learn, is that YouTube is great in that they give you so much data. If you were to watch my very first video, I find it very cringe. It's like almost 30 minutes long. Half the video is me telling you what happened in the video, which it's like, just let it speak for itself. So I had to learn that over time of like, hey, people don't seem to be watching this stuff. I'll do less of that and more of the hike. Or I think that first video, it took 2 to 3 minutes to even like get to the hiking footage. I don't know what I was rambling about before it started. So you just learn those things slowly over time. And then I also realized the things that I prefer is I'm not so much into the gear. I'm more into the like, hey, here's a cool place to go. When I figured out the like, oh, what if I made a top 10 video? That wasn't what I was originally doing. And some of those ones, they're like my best videos because they don't go viral. But, the 10 best waterfalls to hike in Massachusetts will always be relevant. And those just crank out consistent views every single day for years. And so that is like another one of my bread and butter that I view as like, if I make those videos, maybe they don't like pop right now, but they should be more evergreen and just kind of go over time. And so it's like been a slow build.
Yeah. So, and that's what Stomp talks about is like people are doing, when people get to the point where they're into hiking, they start doing research, you come up in a lot of those areas. And I think the one thing I like about your YouTube videos is that even if it's a 10-minute video and you're doing a hike up like Mount Flume, like you seem to be able to pick out, there's all the trails generally look similar at some point, but you seem to be able to pick out the 5 or 6 like highlights of each trail and do your walkthrough and call them out, which is good. And I think it's appreciated because you're calling out the tricky parts for people.
Yeah, that's what I try and do. I've gotten a lot better at that, of knowing, especially like the terrifying hikes, the terrifying 25 trails that I do and make the videos for. Those ones are kind of easier in that a normal hike, the highlight of the hike might be the view at the top or the summit. And what I like personally also about those terrifying videos is not only is there usually a summit and a view, there's like a built-in feature, the slide, the scramble. So there's like almost like 2 parts in the video that people are most interested in that I found. And it also helps break it up. Is like halfway through the video, it's like, okay, here's the interesting scramble. Whether or not it's actually terrifying, that's in the eye of the beholder, but it's at least like a highlight. It's a little more interesting. And I know, like when I did Caps Ridge, like that one scramble, it's like, okay, I'm going to spend extra time filming here. And I know it'll be more of the video because that's like the part people are here for, and not the like boring green tunnel through the trees to get there necessarily. And so knowing what to include, I've gotten better over time of showing that. I felt like.
Yeah, and you do a fair amount of these sort of walkthrough videos where you'll place a camera on a tripod and then walk away from it or walk towards it. Like, do you ever get self-conscious about that? Like, I always, I've done a few of those types of things, but I get self-conscious. I'm like, I hope nobody comes and
takes the camera this sort of thing.
Yes.
No, like, because usually no one is there, or I'm like started so early in the day, or the time that someone is overlapping with me is very short, and I only more get self-conscious if I feel like I've inconvenienced someone, like the camera's in the way. And literally it's at the point where sometimes people don't care and they'll just walk around my camera and quote unquote, ruin the shot. And that's fine. I didn't want to, I usually try and wait to make sure the people are gone, and I can usually hear them coming, because not only do I not want them, I want to give the illusion that I'm there by myself. If I can hear them, I also want the illusion that like it sounds like nature. So usually I can hear people chatting before they get there. So I know, I'll wait for them to go by and then I can do my thing. because that's the last thing I want to do is inconvenience anybody. So, but certain trails I know ahead of time, that's like, besides the like, is the trail hard or not? There's certain trails in the Whites, especially, that are particularly busy for whatever reason. So like when I did Caps Ridge Trail, I only filmed that one. I got a day off of work because I knew I couldn't do it on a Saturday or a Sunday because that's the most popular trail to Jefferson. And it would be, the hardest part would be just like not inconveniencing anyone, finding a time to make it look like I was the only one there, especially on the scramble. So that was actually the hardest part about that one, which is not what many people would think, at least in making the video.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And then I did some research. Stomp does nothing. I do all the work around here. I did a bunch of research. So there's a couple of videos. So there's a video I can throw up that's it's one of your early videos, Get to Know You, where you answer a bunch of different questions. One thing I will tell you is I'm a WPI dad. So, yeah, right. So go Goats. And then, there was some interesting info on there. We kind of covered some of the ground about your work and in your early life and stuff like that. So that's an interesting video to check out. But the one that cracked me up, and I have a story to follow up with, is the Table Rock. So up in Dixville Notch, on the Terrifying 25, the Table Rock, there's a climbing trail, and then there's a trail you can get up the back way. And people constantly confuse these two trails, and it's not clear in exactly which one you're supposed to climb in order to hit the Terrifying 25. But you had a video where you had done you went up the back way, I think, right?
Well, because that was, I don't remember. It might have been the very first one from the Terrifying 25 that I made a video about, because that one is close to the place I usually stay. So I'm like, oh, that one's really convenient for me to go. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that one was on a list. I've done that trail before. I've been to that cliff. I'll go do it. And I've done that hike. So I just hiked it the normal way that I did it. And the current, some of the descriptions I found for the list, it's more, it wasn't well laid out in terms of the description of what the actual thing is. Their opinion is, the creators of the list is more just listing the bare basics and then having you use the different guidebooks to fill in the rest of the gaps. So that's part of the reason why I'm like, oh, it'd be helpful to make certain videos like this, because you could see more detailed, if it's a single ledge that puts something on a list, where is that ledge? So when it came to Table Rock, I never even crossed my mind that A, there was two trails, and B, that they even existed or that it would matter, because I'm like, oh yeah, when I get to the top and I sit on the cliff, that's scary. And that's the terrifying part. I didn't realize it was also because the trail itself was a nightmare, because I didn't even know that was there. And I don't know if it had a good sign at the time, but then I posted that video, and when I very first started, and we've become friends, I would say, is Trish, who created the list, Trish Ellis now. When I found the Facebook group for that group, I thought it was, it's just people who are fans of that list. No, it's run by the people who created the list, and they're the moderators. Yes. Same with the 52 with the View. It's I think it's Ken who actually does the guidebook. And so when I posted my video in there, they were very nice enough to let me post because it was relevant and it would be helpful for people. And then it was her personally who messaged me later being like, hey, Adam, I watched the video. It was great. Love it. Love it. You didn't hike the right trail. And I'm like, what do you mean I didn't hike the right trail? That's not possible. And then she proceeded to tell me the funny stories. That one, not only could people hike the wrong trail because it's not clear. Some people are really silly. And apparently there's a Table Rock in Maine, and people have hiked that one and thought they got credit, even though it's the Terrifying 25. Everyone, it's only for New Hampshire. It does not count for Maine. So do not hike Table Rock in, I think, Grafton Notch and think you're hiking the trail, even though it's oddly close, I think, to where that Table Rock is. So I've heard people have made that mistake as well.
Yeah. So that happens. And there's this climber trail that's right on the road.
Yes.
And you park basically right on the road, and then it goes straight up, and then you turn the corner and you're right on the ledge there. So yeah, that happens. That's a common.
How was that climber's trail? Because we got to go back up there and do that.
I thought it was fun, a classic, because the two trails are so close to each other. It's real easy to just go up it. It's really steep, but it's very short. And then you can easily hike down the other trail and then walk the road back to your car if you don't want to climb back down the same way.
Yeah, and it's like, it is steep, but I feel like it's got a lot of like built-in kick steps. Like just people have kind of like dug in, so it's not too bad.
It's built-in kick steps. There's rocks. The rocks are kind of pointy. At the end of the day, compared to some of these other ones I've been doing, because it literally is so short that like it'll be over before you know it. And me personally, it's more that cliff and sitting on the edge. That's the stuff that gets me. So I still think that was like the worst part for me. Was being at the top.
Do you actually go out to the very edge and like hang your feet over the end?
No, but when I made the video, in the footage I got in the video, I went further out than I probably naturally would have if I was just there by myself, because I needed, I guess, to perform. I don't know. I did what I needed to do, and then I got out of there, and that was still further than I would have gone normally, I would say.
I remember there's like a little dip before you get to the very end, and I kind of huddled in that little dip, and then I was like, all right.
I think that's where I went. I've seen people sit. I know what ledge you're talking about. They sit there. I've seen that. No, thank you.
Yeah. Well,
my wife did it. She's hardcore. I couldn't do it. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, my palms are sweating just talking about it right now. So, but the other video that I like highlighted, and this one is really actually it went from like, oh, this is kind of funny watching, and I'll explain it. So like it got scary quickly. So you were out in the Great Gulf, and typically with the Terrifying 25, like it's a redlining trace trail list. So you have to hike the entire trail. And Madison Gulf and the Great Gulf, you tend to like chunk them out, and you don't do them all at once. So you end up going back and forth in there a couple of times to get the various trails. And in this video, did this happen like a year ago?
This was just a year ago, because it was August of last year. So that was like August 20th. So just over a year ago. A year and a month.
You got injured really bad out there. Like that was scary.
Yeah. So what was funny about that one, like you said, these terrifying trails we talk about, everyone like in a weird way to it, like, and because I know you talk sometimes about search and rescues on your podcast, is that people never think it's going to happen to them. And what I'm here to tell you is that it could happen to you. And what's interesting about how it can happen is that it could be actually at the place where you least expect it, because we're talking about all these terrifying trails, which are steep and technical, and like, oh, it's really hard to film, or you're distracted. That's where it's going to happen. But that's for the Great Gulf. I was miles away from the steep part, and the part that I was like focused on and thought would be the hardest. Where I ended up getting injured was at just a random stream crossing that was completely flat, and on that trail in the Great Gulf, there's multiple stream crossings. And the day that I did it, there was kind of a large amount of water. So that wasn't even the hardest stream crossing of the day. Those hardest stream crossings that I had.
No, it looked like very benign, like any other trail you go on.
I didn't even film. I was like on edge and getting across them. And so this one, I guess that's part of the reason why it happened, is that this is the smallest stream crossing, I think, in that whole trail. So my guard was down. No, I didn't think anything was going to happen. And then I don't know if people have seen the clip. It's like, it looks like I just walk across the stream. I step on the wrong rock and I go down because I just stepped on a rock that was loose. What people don't really know, unless they've seen the full video or understand the context, was that I was hiking through the Great Gulf, several of the terrifying trails that month. So I did 6 Husbands and Sphinx videos like the previous 2 weeks. And to get to those trails, you have to go and start on the Great Gulf and pass this exact stream. So I crossed the trail 1, 2, 3, 4 times the previous weeks. And then the day that I was filming this video, because the stream was so tame, I'm like, oh, I could do the walk away. I could do a walk towards. I can put the GoPro in my mouth and do a first person splashing in the water. So that was like my 9th or maybe even 12th time crossing that same stream, all within the course of a month. And it was only the very last time when I stepped on, that was the only time I ever stepped on that one rock. And it just was loose. And I went down, and I had previously had ACL surgery, so that's why I was wearing a leg brace. And as I fall, my foot got like wedged in another rock, so it wasn't freely able to move. And as the weight of my body came down, I felt like the pop in my knees. So like I immediately knew that I had like retorn something in my knee. But I think I also must have punched a rock because I like fell and tried to catch myself. And it was only later when I brought myself to the side that I realized that I had broken my hand, that my hand actually hurt because I was so focused on my knee because that had been a big thing. So that was like, it just happened all at once. And I had to sit on the side for a while. I've been rambling a bunch. Like, there's more questions? I'll feel free to.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting story for people to understand that this can happen. But what did you? So the amount of time you waited before you're trying to figure out your injury with your knee, did you at a certain point say, I got to get up and get moving to get out of here?
So it was not like a time situation. This happened around, I think it was like 10 or 11 in the morning. So like I had plenty of time. I did pull myself out of the stream. I needed to see like how bad it was. This was like 3.5 miles in. So I knew I was deep in. At the time, Great Gulf, if you've never been in there, there's no cell reception in there. So I didn't have good reception. And I probably should change this. I don't hike with, what's that? The GPS thing people use.
Yeah. The InReach.
I didn't have the InReach. And I think this was a Saturday. I purposely picked this trail because it's not a very popular trail. So I knew there wouldn't be a lot of people because I didn't want them to be in the way of my filming, but I had seen people that day. And so basically I knew there wasn't a rush. Let me sit on the side and just see, how does this feel? Can I basically self-rescue? Because I've also read several of those reports and knowing that like, even if you get a rescue, it takes a very long time, especially for how large I am and how deep in I am. It would take a very long time to get out, so that and then I could just wait. If someone comes along, I can see if I need to ask for help. I eventually felt good enough after, I think it was like a half hour, 45 minutes, that I'm like, let me see if I can start to self-rescue. Like I can't keep hiking. And by that point, by the time I did run into people, I was basically confident in myself that I could get myself out from that point, that I didn't need to escalate the situation, and basically hiked all the way out back to my car and got myself to services that I needed to do it. But I guess I was fairly lucky. Like I said, I was not on a steep part. It was a benign part of the trail, and I had a large familiarity with that specific trail at that time.
Yeah. And the only thing that comes to mind to me when I watch that video is, and I understand why you don't do this, because I'm assuming you've got a lot of equipment and it's just one more thing you have to deal with, but hiking poles in that situation probably, would help. But I get it why you don't use them.
That was like the thing that when I was sitting there on the side of the trail on the river, it was like, you ask all those questions, like, what if I had poles? What if I didn't step on that rock? What if I had only taken 2 clips? What if I like skipped ahead? Yeah. So since those days, I do hike with poles now. I have them with me at all times because I have had now my ACL repaired surgically twice. I'm fragile. So I understand that now. I should have known that more then. When I make new videos now, though, usually on uphills, I don't need them as much. So I still have them in my pack. I'm not using them as much. When I hike back, I'm 100% using the poles. And when I do come across certain streams, I think in one of my more recent videos, like you see me using the poles to cross a stream. I don't mess with streams anymore. I know my place. And so I take them out on select instances when filming, and even when not filming, but definitely on my hikes down the mountain. That's where I find the most, those are usually what give me the most difficulty with my knee brace. That's when I use them the most.
Yeah. And then the other, I'm glad you got out, and kudos to you for self-rescuing. And I'll include the link to the video in the show notes so people can check it out. But it's really an interesting moment because it perfectly encapsulates what we talk about a lot of the time. Is people think like, oh, all these people are getting out there and they're getting rescued because of reckless behavior, but the vast majority of the situations are these exact situations where it's just a slip and fall can happen to anybody. And
you can't always predict it, and it couldn't be, like you said, I crossed that same stream several times, and I've since met like some of the ultra runners that like I think I bumped into Finding Phillip, and in talking with him when he set his like record for the winter 48, it's like, oh, we slipped and fell so many times and got banged and bruised, and it's like, and then you're fine.
9 lives.
And then I fall one time. So you never really know which fall is going to be the one that gets you out there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then some of the additional content you have. So you've got these best of lists that I think are fantastic. So I'm assuming like a lot of times when people are doing research, they'll stumble on these. But you do a lot about waterfalls. You've done lists about easy hikes. And then you do like these steep sections. So you cover like Wildcat Ridge, Beaver Brook, the infamous climb up South Twin, which are like 3 or 4 of the steepest sections of the Appalachian Trail. Do these ideas come to you easily, or do you have to like really dig to figure out what topics you're going to cover?
It's been over a couple years of making the videos. When I first did it, like I said, it was like I would just go on hikes and I'd make videos, and then no one would watch the videos. So it's like, what was I going to make it about? And when I was early on in my making the videos, because I live in Boston, I'm like, I don't always want to go to New Hampshire all the time. And I had the idea, my previous videos at that time had just been single hike, single video, at least when it came to YouTube. What if I did that's when the idea, I'm like, what if I did a top 10 of things that like weren't necessarily interesting enough to sustain a full 15-minute video, but like the idea was like, oh, if there's 10 hikes in a single video, maybe that's 10 times as valuable or interesting to a person. I live in Boston. What do I like? Oh, people like waterfalls. What if I try and find the 10 best waterfalls in Massachusetts? That was the very first top 10 video I did. And I did my research and I went out there, and it became quickly one of my best performing videos, because in a weird way, I think it's like people assume you have to hike the biggest mountains. You have to do these things. But I think it was performing really well because it, like most of them are in the Berkshires, which are people don't really think about if you're making content of like, let me focus on the Berkshires. But because no one else thinks, everyone just makes videos about the White Mountains and you're competing with all these people, all of a sudden it's like, you're the one guy who made videos about the Berkshires. The Berkshires are the closest mountains to Boston and New York City, and people are already going there. They still need to know what to do when they're there, and seeing a bunch of waterfalls, that seems pretty good. And because I had that success with that video, it became a natural progression of, oh, let me do the waterfalls of all the New England states. So my second one I did was for Connecticut. No one even thinks you can go hiking in Connecticut, but you know who wants to go hiking in Connecticut? The people who live in Connecticut and probably New York City. They live there. So I did that one. That was interesting. I also did like top 10 hikes on Cape Cod. People go to Cape Cod on vacation. It was closer to me than going all the way up to the mountains. And it was different. I at that time, I just wanted something different compared to just hiking all those. So I did that. And then eventually I did complete the series of like, I think I visited every waterfall worth visiting in all of New England, which is like over 200, 300 waterfalls. It was a little crazy last year when I knocked out Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont in the same year.
How's the mileage in the car?
It's over 100,000 miles by now. Approaching 2, I think. 200.
That's a lot of driving. The Terrifying 25, to me, that's the one that always pops up. And I've done the Terrifying 25 list, and for whatever reason, like that's in my TikTok algorithm. I think so you come up quite a bit. Have you completed it? You've done all of them?
No. So I am very close to finishing. I've been driving myself crazy this summer, doing a bunch of filming to try and finish it this year. Recently, I forgot to mention it when we were talking about my injury, but I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I finally did finish Great Gulf Trail, almost a year and a couple days to when the injury happened. I went and I hiked that full trail past that point, made it to the summit, completed that hike. It was a very emotional day. And now I only have 2 left on the list to complete. And I'm going to finish one this weekend, fingers crossed. And then which is the big one, Huntington. That's the,
nice.
No big deal. Just one of the hardest ones in all of New Hampshire. And then after that, I just have Baldface Circle Trail, which I don't think is particularly hard, but I've heard it's very scenic. And so I'm basically waiting to do that one for the peak leaves. I thought it would make for a really scenic video for that one.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, the ledges on South Baldface can be a little, it can be a little, there's a couple of like spots where you do not want to slip. So just make sure your sneakers are extra grippy. But Huntington...
Yeah, so I'll look for a dry day on that one.
Yeah, I mean, and Huntington to me, I don't know. I feel like it's a little overrated. Like there's the fan section where if you hit it on a good day, like you breeze right up it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I've already cleared that part of it. But like, I think it's more so the like knowing that it's people who make videos about that one, they tend to be quite popular, or people are just really interested in that trail. And I want to do the best job I can. So I've already devoted 2 full days of hiking and filming of work to it already. And so now the only thing left is that one 600, just 600 measly feet straight up. So, in the final video, it'll be like 3 days of filming together into one video.
Yeah. Is there like a certain technique that you have to use for filming to actually, one of the hardest parts I find, and I do these videos sometimes, I don't really post much, but to show the actual elevation and the steepness, like I find that impossible. I mean, I'm only using a dumb iPhone, so
it never looks steep. Even at the camera, it never looks steep. I can't even explain it.
I can interject. I think the one that looks the best is probably your ladders on Six Husband. I think you captured it there because the GoPro does sort of alter reality, but Six Husband video that you did is fantastic for the listeners to check out.
Because I think that one I really tried I think I took the camera and I squatted it on the ground and just pointed it up so that it was like the maximum level of steepness up the ladder. It was that one. I remember that one was tricky to do. There's not a lot of space next to those ladders.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
And then, so I have to dig back in my memory, but I feel like you're not like a hardcore winter hiker. Like you've dabbled in it, but you're not doing like a ton in the winter, right?
I've dabbled in it. My first winter, it was like, oh, great. I made a YouTube channel about hiking and now it's the winter. What do? I guess I'll go hiking in the winter. And then you proceed to hike Mount Whiteface as your the Blueberry Ledge Trail as your first winter hike, proceed to fail it. And I turned around. It was more than, I shouldn't have done that trail in the winter. I don't know why I chose it. But I knew it would still make for a good video because it's like, YouTuber face. I failed to hike the trail. Yeah. Oh no, I'm an idiot. And like people loved it. They thought it was funny. And, you do the sad face.
That's great.
And I didn't have freaking snowshoes, just stomping, post-holing my way up. But it was a beautiful day. So like I knew what I was getting myself into. I had a lot to learn. And until I had the channel that gave me motivation to hike in the winter, I had never hiked in the winter, had no real desire to. Now I have an appreciation for it. Hiking, I think it was Mount Wambeck. I hiked, or it was either Mount Wambeck or Cherry Mountain after like a fresh snowfall where like you really see, I call them the marshmallow trees, those pine trees at the top. It's really gorgeous and it takes my breath away. It's so quiet. And I really appreciate having been motivated to do it. But when it comes to filming them, I do not like that. When I film a video for the people at home, it can take 1.5 to, at worst case scenario, 2 times as long to hike a trail when I film it versus if I'm just hiking it. And
I was going to ask you
when
about
it
that.
comes to the winter,
interesting.
Like in the summer, who cares? You have the daylight, it's warm out, you deal. When it's really cold out, it just wears you down and it stinks. And so at this point, I wanted to do Washington in the winter. That was a big goal of mine. Done that, filmed that video. And then last year I filmed the easiest 4,000 footers to do in the winter for people wanting to start their winter 48 list. And And I think I did just a bunch of like, hey, if you're a normal person and like the idea of hiking the winter sounds like an alien talking, here are a bunch of like easy hikes that aren't even mountains and you can go do them. And like, it's a fun time. But now that I've done those, there's nothing else for me in terms of filming hikes in the winter in New Hampshire or the Northeast. I think I'm done in terms of making content like that. Because I have no personal desire to finish my 48. I don't enjoy making the long videos in the winter. So now I'm going to call it, this winter is going to be Winter Adam, where he like rests and gets ready for the next hiking season. But if I go on vacation somewhere warm, like maybe Arizona or Utah, to get away from the snow, where it's like, because that's the part that I need to explain, is that like when some of these ones I've done this summer, it's like a 17-hour hiking day, and that's not possible in the winter. It sucks.
No,
like it's type 5 fun by that point, I think. So like I'd rather avoid it.
Yeah, and the key with winter hiking is moving and keeping your retaining that heat by moving and going uphill is such a critical part of it. And you can't do that if you're taking your gloves off and you're bending over to set up a tripod and then walking back and forth. Then you've got to layer up again. And then by that time.
And the weather is so much more unpredictable. And that's when you really get into trouble. And I'm a definitely, even in the winter, a fair weather hiker. Most of the video, it's like people may argue whether or not I have the most gear to be prepared for some of those ones. But part of my view is being prepared is picking the like ideal best day to go. And if it's even not that in the winter, I'm not out there. There's other things I can do. And that's what I end up doing.
Yeah. Do you, like I always joke around, like I never like read comments or I barely ever respond to any emails or anything like that. But do you get, with a higher profile like you do on social media, do you get criticism or any pushback from people, or do you just tend to ignore it? Or I'm assuming most people are pretty positive.
Most people are positive. I'd say there's two flavors of it, because when it comes to Instagram, I post like the memes, purposefully inflammatory memes, some could argue. In terms of like poking fun, and some people don't get the joke. And so I'm in my own comment section, trolling my own commenters and kind of showing disdain for some of them in terms of like stirring the pot purposefully to get more conversation and comments going. Those I don't view as very serious. Yeah. It's like, my mountains are better than your mountain. And like, who cares? It's not really about me. But sometimes there are ones. Oh, we lost him.
There he goes. That's okay. We'll be right back. Keep on going.
Sometimes there are ones that are more personal. The ones I take more personally are, I sometimes get comments that are like, that consider me a spot burner, they call it, or that I like, by the fact that me recommending something outside that has a trail that is sometimes a state park, that I'm somehow ruining the outdoors for people. And those ones I sometimes take them to heart, because there's certain places that I've not recommended that were technically like, oh, the public has access, but it's like a private landowner and it's not like the most well-known. I've done my best to only like truly recommend things that I feel like have a trail and that normal people could go to. And it's like, it's not like I'm asking people for their secrets and then posting them. Like, if I can find on the internet, I'm sorry to tell you, it's not a secret. And right. It's like, oh, it's already on a list. And it's like, so sometimes that happens, but I don't know. I do read them. And what was it? The ones that was the strangest was, there were 2 Reddit threads about me, like hate threads that I found. And it felt like I was reading like high school gossip at school, that they were talking about you behind your back. Toxic. And then I read it. And I wasn't supposed to read it. And so that was rather interesting. Okay. I never responded to those because like I don't need to respond to that. But it's just like I usually find them Reddit. And people send them to me. And so I've read most of the stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's that positive and negative with social media, but you seem to be doing fine with that. How about how long does it take you to turn around a video, editing wise and whatnot?
Lately it's been long. I haven't posted any in a while because Instagram has been a more of a focus now in terms of like when I was just making YouTube videos, I could turn one around in a week or 2 weeks, but depending on the video, it's not my, I kind of can only do one thing and focus on one thing. And so like, for example, I'm sitting on a top 10 video that I filmed last year, and I haven't gotten around to making it. And I don't know when I will. And when I meet people, especially this summer, they were like, oh, when's the video going to come out? I'm like, maybe September. I don't know. My cousin's wedding's in September, so maybe not, eventually it'll come out. And at the end of the day, it's just me holding myself to a schedule, and they come out when they come out.
Yeah, Mike's back. He got abducted by aliens, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. It was very, very odd. Like I jumped right back in, and I could listen to you guys talk, but I couldn't talk. So, but I am back. I apologize for that little gremlin in the works here. So, what's future plans for you? So, you got to finish the Terrifying 25, Adam, and then I know I caught that you're sort of on your own timeline when it comes to videos. But any fear of you running out of ideas or anything like that, or are you gonna be able to? There's endless lists.
I think there's endless lists. There's endless like stuff. People ask like, am I going to go these faraway places? Like maybe. New York's right there. I haven't done New York. It's asking for it. The people in New York City need to know where to go hiking on the weekends, right? So,
true.
And the Poconos and like there's plenty of places to go. In the near term, like I said, I want to finish my Terrifying 25 very soon. I'm probably going to take a week off of work to hike in the peak leaves, and I need to figure out like what is my goal for that in terms of like what is the video idea. I'm thinking maybe 10 easiest 4,000 footers in general. These terrifying ones have been very difficult in like personally in terms of the strenuousness and the like frustration of how long they take to film. So something that's like the 10 easy scenic hikes to do with your kids for the fall. That sounds lovely. I would love to do that. That would just be so much easier for me. And, So I might do something like that, hike a couple 52 with the view for this fall. And then, like I'm not as prioritized about editing the videos because once the leaves fall and I basically stop filming at that point because it's hard enough to get people to care or pay attention. And when the trees are sticks and it looks brown and ugly, no one wants to see that. So I'll usually use that time to finally start editing videos and releasing them or stuff like that. Maybe next year, longer term, like, New York's waterfalls haven't been found yet. So that might be next spring.
It's true.
And then once I finish the Terrifying 25, I've heard a newer list that I don't know if many people know about. Someone put together the Wicked Wild 25 for Maine.
No.
And so that one is calling my name, I think.
Wow, the Wicked Wild 25. Now I'm going to have to do some research, but Maine is fun.
And that one's really quite new. Within the past 5 years, I think that one got created. And I heard about it and I'm like, sounds cool. I heard there's some rough trails in Maine. I'll go check them out.
All right. Well, Adam, we appreciate the work that you do. And like Stomp said, like the benefits for people that are researching these, especially some of these tougher trails like the Terrifying 25 is huge. So we appreciate you doing that work, and you seem like a great guy. I feel like if you went winter hiking with us, like we'll take a sled, you can leave the camera at home. You'll love it. Matter of fact, I saw Taylor, the New Hampshire hiker, on my way up to Mount Washington last year. So you can get her to join us.
Well, that's what I mean is like, I'm not saying I'm not winter hiking. I'm just not making videos,
filming. Yep.
And cause like I have a few friends, like it is fun to go, and I could definitely see myself doing a couple, but just like, I've done the ones that I wanted to do in terms of filming them. And so it's like, a couple for me. Why not take a break?
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well,
Good
again,
stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us, Adam. This was cool. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. I feel like you killed it. You brought your own microphone. I'm so proud of you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's fun. And that, especially hearing firsthand from Stomp and stuff, like and anyone I meet on the trail that like, I watched your video and I found it helpful. That means the most to me because that's like, at the end of the day, that's my goal with making them. They take a lot of time to film. They take a lot of time to edit. And whether or not like they're financially viable doesn't really matter. It's this knowing that they are useful to people in the way that I'm hoping they would be. That means the world to me and helps motivate me to keep making more and finding new trails to explore.
Awesome. Yeah, great work.
Very good. All right, Stomp. So we learned a lot about Adam. What was your favorite part of that?
I think that the favorite thing that I can recall is his boo-boo with Table Rock and the Climbers Trail. That's a great story.
Yes.
But I appreciate all of his work, and he puts in the work when it comes to recording like every segment of a trail with his camera and backtracking. It's incredible. It's a lot of work, and it really shows in his final productions. Vaucluse gear. Does your backpack not provide enough ventilation? Does your back sweat too much when backpacking? As you know, sweat can be extremely uncomfortable on the trails. Plus, sweat is a serious risk factor in both hot and cold climates. As your clothes get wet, your core temperature can dramatically fluctuate, and this can result in hypothermia, heat exhaustion, and dehydration. Let's not forget, very uncomfortable. Today's your lucky day because we have good news for you. There's a piece of gear that solves the sweat and ventilation problem, making your backpack more comfortable. Vaucluse Gear's ultralight backpack ventilation frame. This ultralight frame is a backpack accessory that easily installs in your favorite pack, sizes 15 liters to 45 liters, and creates a ventilating airflow gap between you and your pack. It's also ultralight, weighing around 3 ounces. That's equivalent to a pair of wool socks. Whether hiking in hot or cold temps, the ultralight backpack ventilation frame from Vaucluse Gear is a real game changer regarding airflow and ventilation. Visit VaucluseGear.com to order an ultralight frame today. Use promo code SLASR, SLASR, to enjoy a $5 discount, and let them know that Mike and Stomp sent you. Good stuff. By the way, he's going to be joining us, I think, in maybe 2 episodes or so to chat, to give us all the latest breakdown of what's happening in Vaucluse world.
Yes. All right, Stomp. This is the part of the show where we do search and rescue news. Have you ever been to Madam Sherry Forest?
I have not. It's on the list.
Do you know what that is? That's like that's that forest that has like the mansion that the only thing left was the stairs, but I think the stone stairway like collapsed eventually.
Oh, I hadn't heard that, but yeah, there's just that skeletal remains. Pretty interesting place.
Yeah. Somebody told me that stairway did collapse, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. But apparently there was a lost hiker. So on September 12th, Fish and Game was notified of a lost hiker on the trail system of Madam Sherry Forest in Chesterfield. 42-year-old hiker from Massachusetts was hiking with her dog when she became disoriented as the sun set. Tends to happen when the sun goes down, Stomp.
That's right.
So the hiker decided to call emergency services. Local police department and Fish and Game conservation officer responded to the Ann Stokes Loop trailhead, and the CO hiked 1 mile and reached the hiker on the Wantastic. Whoa. Wantastic Monadnock Trail at 8:30 p.m. I don't know how to say that.
Whoa.
So
what's that?
Yeah, whoa. I don't know. But once the hiker was provided a light, they were able to hike out. So it's amazing how that light tends to solve problems.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Want to stick it, I think it is.
Wantastic, I bet. Wantastic? One has to quit.
Boston accent, want to stick it.
Monadnock.
So, Monadnock.
Wow.
All right, stop. Injured hiker rescued from unknown pond trail.
That's pretty up
This
there.
was on September 16th, which was 3 days ago, so that would have been Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday. Oh, sorry. The press release came out on Monday, but the actual incident happened at 5 p.m. on Saturday, September 14th. Fish and Game was notified of an injured hiker about 3 miles up on the unknown pond trail in Kilkenny. 44-year-old hiker from Connecticut had been descending the trail when she slipped and suffered a severe lower leg injury, which prevented her from being able to hike out. She was able to make a 911 call for help. Berlin Fire Department and a couple of other local fire departments, and then Androscoggin Valley Search and Rescue, Pemi Valley Search and Rescue, and a paramedic and EMT from Berlin Ambulance, along with conservation officers, responded to the call. So rescues got there around 7. By 8 o'clock, they had enough rescuers to place the hiker in a rescue litter and start the carry down, and it took them about 2.5 hours to get down there, and they got there at 10:30 and shipped her off to Androscoggin Valley Hospital in Berlin.
Wow. So
she was on a day hike with her friends as part of the Flags in the 48.
Right.
So
they had a long day.
Long day.
Absolutely. So where's Bunnell Notch? I forget.
That is the main approach. So instead of going unknown pond, you keep going past that and hike in from the south is Bunnell Notch Trail.
Okay. Yeah, that's a long day.
Yeah. Wow. Typically, that's like the beginning of the loop, and then when you come out from you go Cabot, and then you do the Bulge and the Horn, and then come out Unknown Pond, and that's sort of the classic loop around there.
Got it.
Next up, Franconia Ridge hiker with a medical emergency on the Franconia Ridge Trail. So this was also on Saturday, September 14th, 3 o'clock. So a little cluster of incidents. Mm-hmm. Fish and Game's notified of a hiker having a medical emergency between Flume and Liberty. So Pemi Valley Search and Rescue was activated to assist the hiker. Due to the seriousness and remoteness of the situation, a call was placed to the Army National Guard Aviation Unit to attempt a helicopter rescue. While awaiting the helicopter, so the call came in at 3. While awaiting the helicopter, rescues continued to hike up to the patient and his hiking partner. So it was a 56-year-old hiker from Bolton, Mass. The Black Hawk was able to reach the location around 4:50, so about 2 hours, and they were able to hoist him up and transport him to Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical. Mm-hmm. He was with a hiking partner, also from Bolton, Mass., who was unable to board the helicopter and was unfamiliar with how to descend Liberty. So she was met near the summit of Mount Liberty by the AMC Liberty Springs tent site caretaker, and a small team of rescuers from Pemi Valley Search and Rescue was able to intercept them at the tent sites and help her down. And the background on this one, Stomp, is that the two adults were chaperoning a Boy Scout troop. They hit Flume Slide Trail at 6:30. The gentleman that had gotten hoisted out on the helicopter began having difficulty hiking near the summit of Mount Flume, and he later told the group to go ahead without him while the second adult stayed with him. They summited around 2:45, so it took them almost 8 hours to get to the summit of Mount Flume. Wow. As they were going down, he began having a medical emergency and calling for help. So rescuers reached the trailhead. So then eventually the rescuers intercepted the other adult and reached the trailhead around 9:30. So I don't know where the Boy Scouts were. I would have assumed the Boy Scouts would have went to Liberty Springs.
Yeah, good question.
And she could have just stayed with them, but maybe she didn't want to.
That's always a challenging hike, man. Phew. No joke going up Flume Slide.
It's such a bad, people look at it and they just look at the mileage and they go like, oh, it's right by the highway, no problem, but they don't consider the elevation.
Yeah. And the condition of the trail, it's mostly that wet slabs and most people bushwhacking around it now, but it's so steep that it's like just it's challenging.
Yeah. It's a tricky thing. Maybe a little bit more signage to just say like, hey, this is one of the steepest trails in the Whites. You know, like one of those, the trail that the sign that you see on the Holt Trail or something.
Yeah, there's some rumbles. I mean, some of the ideas have been to maybe cut south at the base of that ascent and connect over to Osseo Trail at more of an easy grade, like the scour at the Tri-Pyramids.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So wrap around a little bit.
Yeah.
I could see that. Like maybe do like a, I guess they got to deal with Franconia first, but that may be the next one that they take a look at.
Sure.
Oh.
Wow.
All right. This next one, I saw this one going down on, Friday on the Nick News Facebook page. That's a pretty good page. They cover all things North Conway and Freiburg. So Friday, September 13th, a 58-year-old hiker from Maine was hiking with her husband and viewing the falls on Champney Falls when they slipped and fell, which resulted in a hip injury. That's a horrible spot to fall because there's absolutely no cell connection.
Yeah.
So, and this is what a fishing game, she was unable to stand or walk. Husband had to hike out because they had no cell signal. Even when you get to the trailhead, there's not really a cell signal. So he summoned a passerby and requested that they call 911 for assistance when they get a cell signal. The injury occurred at approximately 5:15 and 911 was notified at 6:50. So that's horrible because you hike out and then you've got to flag down a car and hope that they'll call 911 on your behalf once they get into Albany.
Right.
So
it's tough.
Yeah. So Fish and Game responded with the Conway Fire and Lakes Region search and rescue team, and the hiker was located about 1.5 miles from the trailhead. So 5:15 was the injury. 911 was notified at 6:50, and then the first rescuers arrived at 8:40. She was assessed and stabilized, then transported by rescue litter to the trailhead, arriving at 10:35, and then Conway ambulance transported her to Memorial Hospital in North Conway. So
got it.
Yeah, Champney Falls is rough. Like you could bring a Garmin with you if you're going there, or an InReach, because otherwise there's not a lot of options. Matter of fact, you're better off hiking up to Chicora to get a cell connection than you are hiking down.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yep. But that's it, Stomp.
Yep. Nice and Q word. Not too bad, but the leaves have fallen, so that's when the uptick in slip and falls tends to happen. So watch your footing.
And remember, if you watch your footing, and if you happen to be in Yellowstone, stay on the boardwalk.
Yes, and always remember, the sun goes down.
Yes. Yeah, and it gets dark when the sun goes down. And if you don't have a light, that's going to be a problem.
That's going to be a big problem.
Yes.
And as it gets colder...
Stay safe out there.
Yeah, as it gets colder, your flashlight's not going to work on your cell phone.
That's true.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRPodcast.com. That's SLASRPodcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hell!
Here's Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared. I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.